With more international students attending university and college throughout Ontario, it becomes more and more important for them to have an advocate at those schools to speak up on their behalf when they experience racism or bias. At Brock University, students there have Kattawe Henry, who can help them out when they are experiencing these kinds of issues. She is the human rights and anti-racism advocate at Brock University. Welcome, Kattawe.
Hi.
It's great to see you again. Still working remotely as students, for the most part, are attending Brock University remotely. How do you help students with these issues when they're not on campus?
Absolutely. So in terms of what the space is looking like right now online, so we have, great things like this where I can video call with folks. I also have a work line that folks can call or text me or even FaceTime, and email is also always available. I, liaison with folks one-on-one in a session just similar like this, or, if they would like to have a support person, I, can chat with folks on the phone and just kind of work on connecting folks with different resources that they need, or if they, want to file a complaint, things like that, and guiding them through the process just online.
Do you find that when people first come to St. Catharines, to the Niagara area to attend Brock University, there's a little bit of a culture shock at exactly how white Niagara seems to them when they're coming from, and it doesn't even have to be international students, it can be students from bigger areas such as, the GTA area where there is a lot more representation of people of color?
Yeah, absolutely. That's literally probably one of the #1 things that students will say, even if just a small talk that people will say, they're like, oh, wow, I wasn't, really expecting it to be like this here. That's definitely a #1 issue. I think that also, would impact things like retention potentially down the line, folks wanting to stay in this area or feeling as if there are resources available in the area that support them in their community's needs.
And it doesn't even have to be a situation where they have experienced racism, just to be dropped into this area and not to see people of like color, like races. That can be something that takes a lot of adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for folks to come into predominantly white spaces and to experience, the racism that comes with that is really hard. And you need community to get through things. And if there's no community there, you don't know where to go to find those communities. That can be really hard. And when you're coming into a space to learn, that impacts your mental space as well, and your ability to feel immersed in the community that you're living in.
You are a Brock grad yourself. What was your experience as a person of color attending Brock when you did?
Yeah, so it was a mixed bag. There were definitely some circumstances that happened that weren't favorable. I met some of my best friends being a student in the early 2010s to mid 2010s. And, Brock was really great around, being able to provide me space to learn to think critically. I think it's come a long way. There have been a lot of developments in the last few years in terms of what Brock is doing or needs to do still, that, I would have loved to have as a undergrad. Like, we now are having a minor in Africana Studies, which I would have loved to have done when I was an undergrad. I mean, I might consider doing it down the road, but, thinking about having a program specifically around Black studies is something that was not even a thing when I was there. So, we're coming along in a lot of ways, but a lot of work still to do.
When you were there, was there someone in your position that could have helped you out at that time, or is your position relatively new?
It's relatively new. I'm the first and only person to hold this position. It was created out of a report from the Anti-Racism Task Force, which I was involved in when I was an undergrad, not specifically in the report or the development of the report. I graduated the year that they started it, but doing a lot of the preliminary work to develop the research needed to justify the creation of this position. So it's incredibly, interesting how full circle things come in that way. But I'm the first one, learning as I go in a lot of ways, because there hasn't been anybody else before me to ask, but building a network with folks to do the equivalent of my role at other universities and aren't the first person to hold their role at their university has been really helpful.
That in itself seems to be a sign of progress, some good progress, the fact that they did create your position. Thanks again for joining us. Kattawe Henry, the human rights and anti-racism advocate at Brock University. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.